is just a name for a mysterious power. Maybe in heaven we'll understand it if we get into the mind of God. Here all we do is enjoy it, not understand it.
We of course have meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have some time for tourism as well. And the different type of tourist activities that we've done this week, we've done a driving tour of the North Shore, the Northeast Coast. We've gone along the ocean, taken pictures. And then we also go to a luau, which is really good for people, especially those who've not been to Hawaii before, because they get to see the different kinds of Polynesian dances. God is happy when he sees us enjoy things, when he sees us smile.
Christianity is like surfing in that it is its own end. It's not useful for some other end. To be a Christian because it helps you to have a good conscience and get some sleep at night, or to be a Christian because it satisfies your family, or because it helps you to be patriotic. That's like prostitution. Money's not bad, but you shouldn't love for money. And these other things like family and patriotism are good, but you shouldn't be a Christian in order to be patriotic. There's only one honest reason for being a Christian, or for that reason for not being a Christian, because it's true. There's not many things in most of our lives that we love for their own sakes, as distinct from for some practical, useful reason. So if even something as simple as surfing can give us that freedom from pragmatism and from utilitarianism, it can be an introduction to higher things, and ultimately the highest thing of all, because God, if he exists at all, must be the ultimate end and not a means to any other end whatsoever.
I was about 27 when I had the idea of the surf camp, and I started it in California. I started in the year 2001. First 8 years of the camp we did in California. And then, since I'm from Hawaii, I decided to move it to Hawaii because I thought it might be a little more attractive. You know, Hawaii is world famous for its surf. So I did move it to Hawaii in 2009, and that's where it's been since. One way that this camp has helped me a lot is that it's really kind of forced me to think about things in a deep way, to come up with analogies that might make sense to people. And in that process, it's helped me to understand my own faith even more. It's almost like, you know, you learn more as a teacher even than your students do, because you have to, you know, read up on the subject, study more, refresh what you already know, take notes, and it's a very enriching experience. All right, who haven't I picked on yet? Giselle. Okay, so Giselle's head there, right? Giselle's head is the most important part of her body, because her head has her face, and it has her brain, okay? And these are important because her brain thinks and feels, and her face, right, is her identity. What if Giselle says, I have a headache, or Robert had one the other day. I have a headache. And so he stopped surfing, had to take some water. He didn't say, oh, my head hurts, but my body's fine, so I'll just keep surfing. No, the head suffers, the whole body suffers, okay? Our body is united to the head, it can't be separated. That's the same union that we have with Jesus Christ. That's incredible. We are members of his body. We're members of his body. It's like when God the Father looks down in this room, he's seeing members of Jesus Christ's body. That's incredible.
The sea is a natural symbol for God for a number of reasons. First, it's the biggest thing you ever see with your eyes in this world. I know the Andromeda galaxy is much bigger, but you don't see that spread out in space as you do the sea. It can occupy your whole vision. It's like a 7 trillion ton grandmother who lives in your backyard. You have to account for her. Every day you say, how's she doing? What's she doing? You can't ignore her. one of the surfer's best rules is never, never, never turn your back on the sea. She's big. And she's beautiful, and yet she's unpredictable. She's wild. If you don't know that God is wild, you don't know God. If you think God is tame and predictable, if God is simply, for you, the last equation in the system, that's not God. God is wild, like the sea. He's also dangerous. Aslan, the great lion in C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, is said to be not safe. In fact, he's terrible, but he's good, like God. If he was safe and good, he'd be boring. He'd be a nice teddy bear. For a lot of people, religion is the teddy bear. The heck with teddy bears. When you grow up, you want wild stuff. Here's a passage that fascinates me from one of King David's Psalms. I almost think David was a surfer. The floods have lifted up, O God. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their roaring. Mightier than the thunders of many waters, mightier than the waves of the sea, the Lord on high is mighty. David must have seen great waves, to use great waves as a symbol for God. There are not many great waves in the Mediterranean. How often does the international surfing competition meet at the Mediterranean? But at least once in his life, he must have seen a great storm, and it stuck in his mind forever. He couldn't forget it. And that was a natural symbol for God. Not a nice sunset, not a quiet pond, not a tree, but a storm.
You know, I grew up surfing. I grew up in Hawaii. And for me, it was almost automatic to see the beauty of God in nature. And even at a young age, I would sometimes be awed by a rainbow or by a sunset that are, those are beautiful here. And I would just think to myself, all this comes from God, and it's so beautiful. And if these things are so beautiful, how much more beautiful must the Creator be? Faith is something that we have to ask God for. He gives it, and then since it's a gift, we should thank God for it and appreciate that gift. And since it is a gift, it's freely given, and it's also freely received. It's both. God freely gives it, and we freely receive it. He allows us to find Him in nature, to sense Him in our heart, in our conscience, in our sense of truth. But He never forces us to believe.
In a sense, God surfs on our souls. He rides the waves of our souls. He conforms His omnipotent power to our needs. He's not just in the on the lip, He's in the trough, invisible most of the time. And I think in heaven we surf on God. One of the verses in the scriptures that I have to interpret non-literally is there's no sea in heaven. If there's no sea in heaven, you can't surf. And surfing is an icon of heaven, and everything that's symbolized here is real there. So there's got to be the best surfing there. So the great sea on which we surf, I think, is God Himself. And those waves are perfect.
So this is just kind of a final meeting to wrap everything up. And I want to just summarize the camp. We talked a lot about explaining different questions, answering questions. We've talked about theological things, philosophical things, scientific, historical. But see, all of that is knowledge that helps us. But there's something even much deeper. The knowledge means nothing if you don't have a relationship with Christ. And so some of you, of course, already have this. You pray every day. Others, might pray a little less. I don't know. Only God knows, because only God can read your soul. But what I would encourage all of us to do is to go deeper in our spiritual life. If we're busy, if you go back to your work schedule, school schedule, you find you're busy, just realize it's always possible to make time for God. Put Him first in your schedule, and well, I think a lot of us will see each other again somehow.
Surfing is not an organized religion. It's more like a disorganized religion. But it's not so disorganized that it has no commandments. In fact, it has 10. And they're very similar to the 10 you already know from Moses. 1. Surrender to the Creator of the sea. Know your weakness by knowing the sea's power. Know your ignorance by knowing the sea's mystery. Know your smallness by knowing the sea's greatness. 2. Do not worship even the biggest, most beautiful thing on earth, the sea. Only God is God. Do not confuse the finite with the infinite. 3. Listen to the sea. It will teach you to listen more and to speak less. It will teach you not to take names in vain. 4. Let the sea teach you to forget time and to just be. Let the sea teach you to celebrate Sabbaths. 5. Honor your ancestors of the sea and their honor of all nature. They saw nature as the cathedral given to you by your Creator, loaded with icons like the sea, to remind you to surrender to Him. Your ancestors are wise. 6. Do not kill beauty. Beauty is your soul's life, your soul's water. You need beauty more than you need power or wealth or even knowledge. Use power and wealth and knowledge to preserve beauty. 7. Do not commit adultery with the sea. Do not adulterate the sea. Preserve her purity and yours. Do not sell her or use her. Love her and all God's gifts. Use and sell your creations. Love and appreciate God's. 8. Do not steal. Be grateful for what you have. God has given you the world's best and biggest toy, the sea. Play in it. 9. Do not lie. Be as sincere as seawater. 10. Do not believe the lies of covetousness or greed or lust. The sea is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be enjoyed. The sea is like life that way. It is also like life in that it possesses nothing, but gives all things, gives all life forms. So be like the sea. Be a giver, not a grabber. Following the wave of ultimate reality, riding the swells of divine providence, ecstatically surrendering to the foaming joy of God, that's the life of heaven. And that's surfing.